World War II was a global conflict. It started in 1939 when Germany, under Adolf Hitler, invaded Poland. This invasion led Britain and France to declare war on Germany. The war quickly spread across Europe. A significant part of the war was fought on the Eastern Front. This was where Nazi Germany and its allies clashed with the Soviet Union. In June 1941, Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa. This was a massive surprise attack on the Soviet Union. The German army, the Wehrmacht, initially made rapid progress. They were confident of a swift victory. The Soviets were caught off guard and suffered heavy losses in the early months of the war. However, the Soviets were determined to resist. The Eastern Front was characterized by its brutality and immense scale. Millions of soldiers fought in often grueling conditions. The vast distances and harsh climate of the Eastern European plains played a significant role in the conflict. The Battle of Stalingrad, which began in the summer of 1942, would become a turning point in this epic struggle. Stalingrad, formerly known as Tsaritsyn, was a major industrial city on the Volga River. It was a vital transportation hub for the Soviet Union. The city was named after Joseph Stalin, the leader of the Soviet Union. Stalingrad held symbolic meaning for both sides. For the Germans, capturing Stalingrad would be a huge propaganda victory. It would cripple Soviet morale. The city's location on the Volga made it strategically important. Control of the Volga would cut off Soviet supply lines from the south. Hitler's desire to capture Stalingrad went beyond its strategic significance. The city was a major industrial center. It produced armaments and tractors vital to the Soviet war effort. Furthermore, the Caucasus region, which lay to the south of Stalingrad, held vast oil fields. Germany desperately needed oil to fuel its war machine. Capturing the Caucasus oil fields would be a major blow to the Allies. It would also bolster the Axis powers' resources. The battle for Stalingrad became a struggle for survival for both sides. The battle for Stalingrad began in August 1942. The German Luftwaffe launched a relentless aerial bombardment of the city. Waves of bombers targeted industrial areas, infrastructure, and civilian residential districts. The Luftwaffe aimed to cripple Soviet resistance and terrorize the population into submission. The bombing was devastating. It reduced much of Stalingrad to rubble within weeks. The city's wooden buildings were particularly vulnerable to incendiary bombs. The streets were littered with debris, craters, and the bodies of civilians. Despite the relentless bombing, the Soviets, under the command of General Vasily Chikov, were determined to defend Stalingrad. They turned the ruined city into a fortress. Soviet soldiers used the rubble as cover. They engaged in fierce street fighting with the advancing German troops. Every building, every street corner became a battleground. Snipers hid in the ruins, picking off German soldiers. Close quarters combat raged day and night. The fighting was brutal and unforgiving. Stalin issued an order, not one step back. Soviet soldiers were ordered to hold the city at all costs. The Volga River became a lifeline for the defenders. At night, under constant German shelling and air attacks, a steady stream of boats and barges ferried reinforcements, ammunition, and supplies across the river. The civilians who remained in Stalingrad endured unimaginable hardships. They sheltered in basements and cellars. Food and water were scarce. Disease was rampant. Yet they continued to support the Soviet soldiers, working in factories, digging trenches, and tending to the wounded. As the battle raged on, the Soviets were planning a counter-offensive. In mid-November 1942, with the Germans tied down in Stalingrad, the Red Army launched Operation Uranus. This was a massive pincer movement that targeted the weaker Romanian and Hungarian forces protecting the German flanks. The Soviet attack took the Axis forces completely by surprise. The Red Army, bolstered by fresh reserves and tanks, made rapid advances. Within days, they had encircled the German Sixth Army, trapping over 250,000 German and Axis soldiers within the Stalingrad pocket. The German Sixth Army, under the command of General Friedrich Paulus, was now trapped. Hitler refused to authorize a breakout attempt. He believed that the Luftwaffe could supply the encircled army by air and that a relief force could be assembled. However, the Luftwaffe proved unable to provide sufficient supplies. The bitter Russian winter set in, temperatures plummeted. The German soldiers, short of food, ammunition, and winter clothing, began to suffer from frostbite, starvation, and disease. In February 1943, the remnants of the German Sixth Army surrendered. The Battle of Stalingrad was over. The Soviet victory came at a tremendous cost. The city was in ruins. Hundreds of thousands of Soviet soldiers and civilians had perished. The Battle of Stalingrad was a turning point in World War II. It marked the end of German advances in the East. It shattered the myth of German invincibility. The Soviet Union, despite its losses, had proven its resilience and determination. The victory at Stalingrad boosted Soviet morale and had international repercussions. It marked the beginning of the long and arduous Soviet advance westward. This advance would eventually culminate in the capture of Berlin in 1945. The Battle of Stalingrad remains a symbol of human endurance, courage, and the horrors of war.